Hi folks, HR Funk here. Out on the range again today to bring you another video in my series on Law Enforcement Qualification Course Challenge videos. Now if you've not seen any of my previous videos in this series, what I'm attempting to do is to fire a law enforcement firearms qualification course from each of the 50 states to look at how the different states compare and contrast with each other in terms of their firearms training standards for law enforcement officers. To date, I've fired courses from 5 different states, and after today, I'll have number 6 done. As a reminder here at the beginning of the video, if you happen to have access to your state's law enforcement firearms qualification courses, and you can potentially get those to me, please let me know in the comments section. Now, I do have several courses in a file waiting for videos to be made, but there are many states in the country whose courses I do not have yet. If you also happen to live in one of the states that does not have a state-mandated course, but it allows the local jurisdictions to come up with their own qualification courses, and you'd be willing to share your course with me, I'll use your local course as a representative for that state. Today's course comes to us from the state of Alabama, and what I have here is the written description of the Alabama Law Enforcement Handgun Qualification course. And I want to show it to you just to make the point that there is not a lot of descriptive information in my course description. So there's going to be a fair amount of interpretation that I'm going to have to do as I shoot my way through these different drills. So if you happen to be from Alabama or you're familiar with this course and you see me doing something that's not quite right, just understand this is the only information I have and there's no one I can ask for clarification. The Law Enforcement Qualification course, or the Handgun Qualification course rather, from Alabama is a 50-round course. It's divided up into stages that are fired from 4 different distances from the target. It begins at a distance of 25 yards from the target, then moves up to 15 yards, moves up to 7 yards, and then comes as close as 5 yards from the target. There are different drills fired from each of those distances, and I'll explain each of those drills before I start to shoot it so you know what you're about to see. Also, each of these drills is timed, and I'm going to be using my shot timer again to make sure that I come in under all the time limits. One thing that the course description does specify is the type of target that is supposed to be used for the Alabama Handgun Qualification course. That is the FBI-Q target, which is what I have up on the target board back here. And for a shot to count on this target, it has to be inside of this white silhouette. And in order to pass the course, a shooter has to fire a score of 70%, meaning that 35 of my 50 rounds have to be inside of this area. Now, there are no special classifications, so far as I can tell, with the course, so there are no expert ratings or anything else. A shooter is just qualified or not qualified, depending upon whether he or she fires a score of 70% or higher. The challenger for today's Alabama qualification course is the Smith & Wesson Model 10 .38 Special Revolver. The Model 10, or the military police, or the hand ejector, as it's been variously known, dates all the way back to 1899 when it was first introduced. All throughout the 20th century, this revolver was upgraded and improved. It's been offered in various different barrel lengths and different barrel profiles. And the one that I have here today is the square butt model with the 4-inch heavy barrel. It also has a Tyler T grip adapter. And something else about this revolver is it's not mine. This was actually loaned to me by a viewer who requested that I make a qualification course video with a Model 10, and I told him I didn't have one, so he loaned me his. So thanks to Edward for loaning me this revolver. I'm going to do my best to make it look good, or hopefully it'll make me look good as I shoot my way through this course. For anyone who doesn't already know, the Model 10 is arguably the most ubiquitous law enforcement sidearm in history. It's been used by police departments from New York City to Hong Kong and everywhere in between. This particular model with the 4-inch heavy barrel and the square butt would have been very common for police officers here in the United States back in the 1970s. In fact, as a kid, I can remember seeing many of these, and it's strange because my memory is looking at them right about here from this level. And just in case anyone's wondering about the ammunition being used in today's video, I'm using a 158 grain Nosler semi-jacketed hollow point Loaded to a velocity of about 850 feet per second, so it's a good 38 special load. I'm not using powder puff ammunition as I shoot my way through this course. So with all of that introduction out of the way, it's time to start this qualification course challenge video and see how the Model 10 does against the Alabama qualification course. The first stage of the Alabama course starts out at a distance of 25 yards from the target and requires the shooter to fire from a position of cover behind a barricade. On the signal to start, the shooter draws and fires 6 rounds from a standing position and then has to kneel down and fire 6 more rounds in a kneeling position, all within a time limit of 35 seconds. Now obviously, since the Model 10 is only a 6-shot revolver, I'm going to have to reload between the first 6 shots and the second 6 shots and still get in within that 35-second time limit. So let's see how it goes. And I'm off to a good start, folks. All 12 of those shots, fired from a distance of 25 yards, are in the scoring area of the target. They were all fired within the time limit. In fact, my time for that drill was 26.92 seconds, so I had just over 3 seconds to spare. So now we'll move on to the next stage and see how I do there. The next stage of this Alabama handgun qualification course takes place at a distance of 15 yards from the target, which is where I am right now, and it has a time limit of 8 seconds. During that 8 seconds, the shooter has to fire out 3 rounds. Now, in the course description, it specifies the shooter is supposed to move to position, but it doesn't say where the shooter is moving to position from. I'm assuming the shooter is moving from the 25-yard line, where they just finished firing, to the 15-yard line, and then firing out their 3 rounds, all in that 8-second time limit. That's the way I'm going to perform the drill, and if that's not quite right, somebody will have to let me know in the comments what the proper procedure is for this stage. The next exercise in this Alabama handgun qualification course is again fired at a distance of 15 yards from the target. This time though, there's no moving into position. On the signal to fire, the shooter has 5 seconds to fire 3 rounds, and the drill is repeated 3 consecutive times, each 3-shot string having its own 5-second time limit. Now the course description doesn't specify whether the revolver is supposed to start secured in the holster or in the shooter's hand. So since it doesn't, I'll choose the more difficult route and start with it secured in the holster just to make sure that I'm not doing it too easily. And I'm ready for the next stage of the course. This stage takes place at a distance of 7 yards from the target, and again the course description specifies that the shooter is supposed to move to position, but once again it does not say where the shooter is supposed to move to position from. I'm assuming I am supposed to start at the 15-yard line where I just finished firing and move to the 7-yard line. So that's the way I'm going to do the drill, and the way it goes is I start at the 15-yard line. On the signal to fire, I move to the 7-yard line. Once I get here, I fire 2 rounds. I have a time limit for the movement and the 2 rounds of 8 seconds. And if this isn't quite right, somebody will have to let me know. This is my best interpretation. And on we go. The next stage of this Alabama qualification course is again fired at a distance of 7 yards from the target. This time on the signal to fire, I have 25 seconds to draw and fire 12 rounds. Now obviously, since the Model 10 only holds 6 rounds, I'm going to have to perform a reload as I'm shooting, and then still get in under that 25-second time limit. So let's give it a try. And I've now arrived at the final stage of this Alabama handgun qualification course. In this exercise, on the signal to fire, I have to draw and fire 6 rounds strong hand only into the target, and then fire 6 rounds weak hand only into the target. The time limit is 25 seconds, and again, the course description doesn't specify if that's 25 seconds for all 12 rounds or if it's 25 seconds for strong hand and 25 seconds for weak hand. I'm going to fire it all under one 25-second time limit with both hands, and obviously I'm going to have to reload between my strong hand stage and my weak hand stage. So we'll see if I can get all that done in 25 seconds. And it's time again for the tail of the target, folks. And this is actually my favorite tail for the target to tell. That's 50 rounds down range, 50 rounds in the scoring portion of the target, and a perfect score for the Model 10 on this Alabama law enforcement handgun qualification course. Thank you, Edward, for loaning me your Model 10. It made me look good. And as you can tell by the music, folks, that's the video for today. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave those for me. And once again, if you happen to have access to your state's law enforcement firearm qualification courses and you could potentially get me a copy of them, please let me know in the comments section. And until next time, good shooting. Bye-bye.